Hey guys, Dewalt here from Capital Insider. Today I thought I'd break down how I built my own bot for trading gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, currencies, essentially anything you can trade. I'll build a bot that could hopefully trade that. Let's dive into it. So this project actually has two parts. Part one was the initial bot that I built. This bot is called Midas, and I built it using some Python for the back end and Lovable for the front end. Now, if you don't know, Lovable is essentially an AI software platform where you can build apps through a single prompt using AI. And even though this is super handy and really makes the process go a lot faster, it is a bit more expensive. Where with Lovable, I think currently you pay around 30 cents per credit, and any prompt for changing or building something is around like 5 to 10 credits per prompt. So it is a bit more expensive. And the goal for it was to essentially just be able to execute trades, move stop loss, move take profit, and just watch the charts while I actually live life. Because since I started trading, I realized that that is a big concern. If you can't constantly watch the charts, you miss the best moves. And you don't always want to jump in on a trade just because of FOMO or because you feel like you have to just be in the market right now. And that's why I built Midas. I wanted Midas to really make trading easier and eliminate those human conditions that make profitable traders unprofitable. And what I mean by that, the goal with Midas was to eliminate emotional trading, revenge trading, FOMO trading, and actually just wait for confirmation and have a system that you stick to. Because as everyone knows, the biggest thing about trading is having a strategy and then sticking to that strategy. And I was hoping that's what Midas can hopefully help with. So a bit more about Midas. Midas has been running for a full 30 days right now. And within its first 2 weeks, it did really well. It turned $20 into almost $200 in under 2 weeks, which is amazing. Then there was a few bugs. For example, as soon as it lost a trade, it would instantly just enter with the same position, with the same direction. So I patched that. Then came the issue where now it would do the same but in the opposite direction. So I patched that. And after making a few changes and a few patches and just adding more safety, we reached a point where Midas was just not taking trades. Because safety and risk management is great, but when it stops you from trading, then that's not really great for a trading bot. So since then, I added a lot more patches. It was also around this time that I realized that maybe I should be focusing Midas on only one instrument. Because up until this point, it was trading Bitcoin, it was trading currency pairings, and it was trading gold. And the issue became gold was clearly its strongest instrument, but the others were leaking the profits that the main bot was making. So I ended up adding more patches. I added more safety patches. I added more weekend awareness so it knows stop trading on a Friday after 8. Because initially it did really well. But then on a Friday after around, let's say 6 to 8 p.m., it started doing really badly. And that's just because before the market closes for the weekend, the volatility goes up and it does crazy things. So I patched that in. And then in general, I noticed from after 8 p.m. to around midnight when the market closes and reopens again, the bot is also way less accurate. So I patched that in, and eventually I paralyzed Midas. It wasn't taking any trades anymore. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been adding more patches and more patches, and finally we have reached a stage where Midas version 3 can run back into the wild and see how profitable it is. But during this time is where the second part of this project came to life, Icarus. So where the goal with Midas was, let's trade safely. Let's actually keep risk in mind and have good risk to reward. Let's have a solid strategy that could actually work. With Icarus, it's the complete opposite. So the goal for Icarus was, let's just throw risk awareness straight out the window. Icarus was supposed to test really crazy ideas. For example, what if we had to just open and close trades constantly? What would that look like? And over the last 2 weeks, Icarus has evolved where it might even end up being more profitable than Midas. Because the thing is, Midas trades essentially one strategy. It has 4 different types of strategies like volatility surge, trend follow, quick scalper, but essentially it uses the same logic. It uses the same ideas. Where with Icarus, you can load 20 different strategies in, and the goal is for us to test which strategies are most profitable, optimize those, and then keep running those until we find that 1 or hopefully 3 strategies that are high win rate and high profitability. Now, Icarus was built differently than Midas. Where Midas uses Lovable for its logic, Icarus is fully Python. Icarus runs fully locally, and so far it's been a lot easier. I feel like Icarus has evolved twice as fast in half of the time than Midas did, just because there's no infrastructure costs. There's no AI trying to do the changes that you want, and it's just not hitting it. Like with Midas in the last week, probably spent so much time and money just trying to get all of the features implemented as cleanly as possible. And I would send Lovable a prompt and I'd get back that, oh, Lovable says it implemented this. And when I tested, it didn't. Where with Icarus, if there's an issue, I spot the issue, I fix the issue. And that's been pretty great so far. Now, in terms of numbers, Midas version 1, like I said, went from $20 to $200 in 2 weeks. That was fantastic. Now, the Midas version 2, it took $50, turned it into $100, and then turned it into minus $14. So that's why I thought maybe it's time for Midas to get a full revamp, as well as for us to start running Icarus more seriously. Because the goal really is by the end of June to have at least one profitable bot system that we can just keep running and keep optimizing and create variants of, where we can really optimize and maximize the profitability of these systems. Cool, I'm gonna move to my computer and then let's break down more of the technicalities. First up, Midas. Let's break down the interface. So as you can see here, month 1 was fairly mixed. We had at least more green days than we did red days, and we're still up $200. But as you can see, these last 2 weeks became way more red than it should have been. But this is the Midas portal, again built with Lovable, supported by this backend. So essentially this is the bridge as well as the bot, where this is running on the backend locally on my computer, and this gets the pricing for all of our instruments and it executes our orders. But if we had to take it in a timeline, the bridge gets the prices and sends it to our Lovable portal. Our Lovable portal uses our strategies and our logic to execute a trade. And once it tells our bot to execute a trade, then we go back to our backend and this actually executes the trade. Now, I've spent a lot of time, and probably too much time, adding really a bunch of small nitty-gritty things where the goal with it is really to help us collect as much data as possible so that we can really optimize Midas to its full potential. Now, just a little bit more of a breakdown. Here's our execution log. As you can see, we do have one open position right now. This morning has not started too strong. We're down $10. On this side is where our signals get pushed. So as you can see here, it picked up a sell signal on Bitcoin, but the move was already exhausted, so it skipped it. We also currently have logic where we can only keep one trade at a time, per instrument that is. So we can't have 2 gold or 10 gold. With Midas, again, the goal is risk management. So 1 position per instrument, and that's about it. Right now, actually, on this open trade, we are up $4. So hopefully we hit TP on that. But that actually brings me to the configuration. We have a break-even system on all of our trades. So once we reach, let's say, half of our risk, we go into a positive stop loss. Cool. Now let's take a look at our bot strategy settings. So as you can see, we've got some general settings. We've got gold, Bitcoin, and all the other instruments. And like I said, right now, we are focusing on only gold and improving and optimizing how Midas trades gold. So just a bit of more of a breakdown of the strategy page. Here's our main switch. And then, like I mentioned earlier, this is our daily wind down. So from 9 o'clock until midnight, we don't take any trades. And this is, again, mostly just for volatility's sake, because the market tends to just move in very weird ways after that period. Here we can also set the active days that we want to trade, as well as which instruments we want to trade. And as you can see here, we allow manual closes, broker closes, allow stop loss updates, all of those fun things. Now, as it goes for our strategies, we have a few strategies, and a few of these have proven to be way more profitable than the rest. But again, for research purposes, we are running all of them. So we've got the pullback, which is once we reach the daily high or the daily low, and we can see price moving away from that, this follows the momentum. Then we've got safe signals. Now this only fires when the daily planner marks a sell signal. Now the daily planner was an old feature that we used to have in our manual trading portal, which this strategy I should actually just deactivate because it isn't relevant. Scalper, the scalper is supposed to actually detect micro pullbacks and then enter with a very tight stop loss and a very tight take profit. However, it hasn't really worked. That feature, scalper has been our most profitable strategy, but it's still aiming for $10 to $20 in profit, and it hasn't really been trying to go for that 1 to 3. However, this strategy we've fixed and introduced into the Icarus ecosystem. It just feels more fitting for that system in terms of high risk, high reward. Then we've got the breakout strategy. Now this is supposed to detect type consolidation, and then as soon as we see a free break from that, we follow. Trend follow has also had a bit of mixed results, but mostly profitable. Now this is also once we see big pullbacks, this is when that strategy kicks in. Then we've got volatility surge. This is for those giant candles, and recently those insider trading candles. We all know what I'm talking about, but this is usually when it sees price moving way more than it has been for the past few hours or the past few candles. This would follow that momentum. And finally, we have fast displacement. This is kind of the same thing. Is if we have one of those giant candles and it instantly reverses and it was just a liquidity trap, this is the strategy that's supposed to also jump in. Here's just another active instruments tab. The first one is selecting for which ones we actually want to collect signals on, and this one is for ones we actually want to execute trades on. Then we've got the auto fallback. This is supposed to be if we haven't taken any trades in 150 minutes, we revert to using some of the other strategies. Now this feature is only going to be used once we've narrowed down the most profitable strategies and we run those as primary strategies, and these would be where our secondary, less profitable but still green strategies would be, so that we can fall back on them in case those other ones don't hit. Then we've also got the hybrid relax hour. So for example, with Midas from 6 to 9, if we haven't hit our daily quota of let's say 30 trades per day, this kicks in and essentially our requirements to take a trade just relaxes a bit. Now we get to our per instrument settings. This is what our goal risk to reward ratio is, as well as our stop loss distance that we have in mind just for all of these different types of instruments. Next, we move on to our local autobot and the bridge settings. This is where we set our maximum amount of trades for the day, our maximum losing trades, max daily loss in dollars, and just your overall max daily drawdown that you want. I also added a 5-minute warm-up because initially one of the bugs for Midas was the moment that you restart Midas or something goes offline and you put it back on, it just opens trades. It just goes in, balls to the wall, and it's like, let's get some money. But this was proven to be incorrect because it would act on old data instead of taking that 5 minutes, collecting new data, and then being like, now it's time to jump in. Now here's our break-even manager that I spoke of a few seconds ago, where the goal for this is we never want to turn a profitable trade into a losing trade. So if our goal is $10 and we only reach $7, we don't want that to come back down and cause a loss. So essentially, if our goal is $10, once we hit around $5, we would go into a positive stop loss, and essentially our risk gets eliminated. But this has also caused an issue where we can close 20 trades at break even and lose one trade, and then we're in the red. So this definitely needs a bit of work, but it's been a good system to have. Next, we just have our simple account symbol mapping. This is just because MT5 uses a very specific symbol for all of the instruments, so it's just so that our front end and our back end knows exactly what to look for and then to connect all of the dots. This feature is something that we've had deactivated for a while, lot sizing and dynamic size boost. This is essentially once we've gone into profit for the day and we have a bit of a cushion, we can activate this, or it can automatically activate, and we can start trading bigger position sizes. So where our regular trading amount is a 0.01 position, hopefully from then on good strategies and good signals, we can start trading at 0.02. And now this is again a feature that we have deactivated for now until we have the exact data and the information we need to enable it and really optimize it to its best potential. The session window. So this is essentially once we start seeing, does Midas perform better in the Asia session or in London session or in New York session? This is what this feature will be for. Finally is a brand new feature that I actually added just an hour ago. This is our control center. So like I mentioned earlier in this video, we reached a point where Midas was just refusing to take trades. It was like a bouncer that just wouldn't let anyone in. So we added these settings where instead of every time going to Lovable and asking it to clean this up, do this, change this, so that we can try and see how we can activate trades, now we've got this system where we can just toggle switches and let it run for a few hours. Then we can truly see what's stopping Midas from letting anyone through the door. Finally, on this page, we have our signal threshold. Now this is essentially just what is the confidence we need within our signal to actually execute a trade. This is pretty straightforward, and that essentially wraps up our general settings for our strategy bot. Next, moving on, we've got our settings for just gold specifically. We won't be diving into Bitcoin and the other instruments in this video, but if this video does well and Midas performs well, we'll definitely be making more videos about it. So first up, we've got our adaptive TP and SL. This function has not been working, but I truly believe it's a good feature. So the goal is depending again on the confidence of our signals. So do we think our prediction on where the price is going is at 80%? Is it at 60%? Based on that, it would tell us how big our stop loss should be and how big our take profit should be. So on a weaker signal, we can only aim for, let's say, $5 to $8, but on a strong signal, we can really aim for that $10 to $15 to $20. Now we've got our trade management ladder. The goal for this is per strategy, and as our price moves up, just an extra arm of the break-even system. So per strategy, we set our limits, and once we get closer to our actual take profit, we start to lock in more and more profit. So for example, if our goal is $20 and we only move to 10, we don't only lock in 25 cents or 50 cents. Now, as price moves closer to our take profit, so does our stop loss move, and we can maybe, at the very least, lock in a tiny bit of that full take profit that we wanted. Next up, we have the clean impulse continuation. The goal for this was essentially, if there is one of those giant green candles, for us to really just jump in and try and follow that momentum. We can only take a certain amount of trades on this type of strategy per day, and it does have a cooldown, so we don't keep thinking that there's constant impulses when there isn't. Next up, we have our post take profit energy cooldown. This is a very cool feature that we added after week 2 for version 2. The reason we added this is version 1's biggest downfall was it would take profit and then open another trade in the exact same direction. And this was causing us to win $20 and then lose $10 instantly afterwards. So essentially now we have to wait 15 minutes before we can even open another trade, and hopefully by then either the signal that we're getting is still very strong or the signal has retraced and we know not to enter that trade. Now we move on to our travel and late entry caps. This is also a very important feature, and it's one that's actually hurt version 2 the most because it's been too strict, where all of the greatest moves of the last 2 weeks we've completely missed with Midas, because Midas was just, it would see a good entry, it would mark it as a good entry, but then it would wait for the confirmation. But by the time it gets the confirmation, it would say, oh, we're entering this too late, we're chasing, and it would just abandon the trade. So hopefully through tweaking these stats and these data entry points, we can truly make Midas enter when it sees the good trade and it validates the good trade instead of waiting for that over confirmation, and by that time it's way too late. But at the same time, this feature does help us from not entering at the very peak right before there's a retracement or a rejection from a level. Finally, we have the early continuation feature. This has essentially got a lot of overlap with the other ones in terms of once we see the breakout, we really try and get in on that early so we don't enter too late and we don't end up getting caught in the rejection. Next, we move on to our Midas diagnostics page. As you can see, we've really tried to build this so that all of the data we collect can really be fully understood, it could be fully downloadable, and we can use it to fully optimize Midas. First up, we've got a bit of just our summary. We can see how profitable we are, what's our most profitable patterns, our best sessions, and just a bit of a summary of all of the data we're collecting. We've got an investigate feature for if you want to dive deep into why did we lose that trade, why did we win that trade, and then we've got patterns. Here we can hopefully try and see why are we losing the most money. Currently, as you can see, it's the waterfall catch. It's when we jump in way too late, when there's a meltdown and we get caught in those rejections. Then we've got clusters, personality, life cycle. I'm not going to dive into what each of these do right now, but essentially all of this is just for collecting as much data as possible so we can, at the end of June, optimize Midas to really be as profitable as possible. Next, we've got our day trading personality. So something we've noticed is we can essentially categorize any trading day into one of these 3 categories. And based on these 3 categories, kind of as you can see, it predicts how well Midas is going to do. So the goal with this is to, early in the day, to predict which type of trading day we're in for and then adjust Midas accordingly so we can really trade to our best ability. Finally, we have the structure memory. This is a feature that, as you can see, currently has not been working. The goal again for this feature is to see where are we losing trades? Are we losing it close to resistance? Are we losing it close to support? Where are we making the most profits? And then again, end of June, we can optimize Midas and it can just become an absolute machine. Finally, I'm going to touch on just our bot overview. So here we just have a basic calendar, as I showed earlier, where we can track our daily losses, green days, red days. And then finally, one of the coolest features, we can create a daily report where essentially it tells us what strategies are doing great, which again, you can go and manually see in all of the diagnostic pages, but this should just be a quick summary of like, why are we winning? Why are we losing? What can we do to optimize all of our strategies and make Midas the best it can be? That about wraps up everything that I can show you right now for the Midas trading bot. Let's move on to Icarus. Now, as you can see, Icarus is a bit different. Icarus is a lot more bland. It doesn't look as nice. It's a lot more just developer looking. However, I truly believe that Icarus is going to end up being even more powerful than Midas, even though Midas has cost the most to get running. So with Icarus, I'm going to really just touch on the basics because this video is getting a bit long and Icarus is kind of in its early stages, where with Midas there was a lot more to explain. As you can see, we're currently running 24 active strategies for our version 2 of Icarus. And this is where things get great because we can essentially test all of these strategies at once for the same period of time, and we can see and narrow down which ones are profitable and worth optimizing and which ones are we cutting loose and just we forget that they have existed. Here is our current results. So as you can see, our most profitable strategy right now has been the opening drive strategy. After 12 trades and a 66% win rate, we're up $37 on that strategy. However, something I have noticed is a lot of these strategies can be super profitable up until the 50 trades mark. And from there is where you really start to see if it was just a lucky day, if it was just a fluke period, or how profitable the bot is in the long term. So this is how we collect the data. And again, it's got the same fundamentals as Midas, where we can see our session matrix, we can see our session windows. Where are we performing the best? Where are we performing the worst? And again, at the end of June, we can optimize all of our winning strategies to really reach its full potential. As you can see, there's some strategies that have been doing absolutely terrible, and those will be the ones we'll be cutting loose at the end of this week. So stay tuned and subscribe so that you can see updates. Which strategies are winning? Which ones are losing? What are we doing? What are we updating? I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting ride, so join us. And back to me in the studio. And yeah, thank you for watching this Capital Insider video. New videos every single week. I'm going to be posting a short every single day to try and just recap how each bot did for the day. So potentially we'll be doing 2 shorts a day, one for Icarus, one for Midas, and let's track it. Let's see by the end of June which bot performs better. Which bot do you think is going to win? Midas or Icarus? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, leave a like, subscribe, and as always, happy investing.